Think about this. The average American spends over $500 a year upgrading tech they don't actually need to upgrade. That's not a tech problem. That's a financial problem. And today, we're going to fix it. What if I told you that the parts people throw in the trash, parts you can get for pennies on the dollar, are fully capable of running the latest games at competitive frame rates? Not playable, competitive. We're talking about hardware that got tossed because a new generation dropped, not because it stopped working. Today on Tech Renew Deep Dive, we build a full gaming rig using recycled and refurbished components, and we benchmark it against rigs that cost 3 to 4 times more. If you've ever felt priced out of PC gaming, or if you've ever wondered whether the upgrade cycle is actually about performance or just about profit, stick around because this one's for you. Welcome back to Tech Renew Deep Dive. I'm not here to give you a top 10 list you could find on Reddit. This channel exists because the repair and reuse ecosystem in the United States is one of the most underutilized resources in consumer tech, and almost nobody is talking about it with any real technical depth. I've spent years tearing down, stress testing, and optimizing hardware that the industry wrote off. We run thermal analysis, we profile CPU and GPU pipelines, we measure actual real-world gaming performance, not synthetic benchmarks designed to sell new product. The build you're about to see was sourced entirely from 3 places: eBay, a local computer recycler, and one Facebook marketplace listing. Total spend, under $300. Let's get into it. Before we touch a single screw, we need to understand why this works. Because the why is what separates a smart, recycled build from a bag of problems. Here's the core concept. Moore's Law has slowed down dramatically. For decades, every new CPU generation delivered massive leaps in performance. We're talking 20 to 30% gains per generation. That era is largely over. Since roughly 2016, the year-over-year performance delta on mainstream CPUs has dropped to somewhere between 5 and 12% in real workloads. So when a manufacturer tells you your 2019 CPU is outdated, what they mean is it's 1 or 2 generations behind, which in modern terms is often less than 15% slower in gaming. 15%. That is not a reason to spend $600. Now here's where it gets interesting from a hardware architecture standpoint. The parts we're using today are built on what the industry calls a mature node. Manufacturing processes that have been refined and optimized for years. Mature nodes mean stable power delivery, predictable thermal behavior, and a massive supply of units that were leased or replaced by corporations and data centers, not because they failed, but because their depreciation schedule said it was time. That's your opportunity. For the central processing unit, the CPU, we sourced an Intel Core i7 from the 8th generation. On eBay right now, these go for between $40 and $60. This chip has 6 cores, 12 threads, and a base clock of 3.2 GHz with a boost to 4.6. For gaming in 2026, this is not a bottleneck. Period. Step 1 in our build process is always CPU validation. Before you buy, check the seller's listing for a CPU-Z screenshot or ask for one. You want to verify the chip identifier, the core count, and the stepping. That last one tells you which manufacturing revision you're getting, and earlier, steppings on some chips had minor errata that were patched in firmware, but are worth knowing about. Next up, the graphics processing unit, the GPU. This is where most of your gaming performance lives, and this is also where the recycled market gets incredibly generous right now. We picked up an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060 for $85. Yes, $85. This card has ray tracing cores, tensor cores for deep learning supersampling, which we'll talk about in a moment. And it pushes well over 60 frames per second in most modern titles at 1080p. Here's the technical piece most people miss about used GPUs. The concern is almost never the chip itself. Graphics chips are designed for sustained high-load operation. The actual failure points on used GPUs are the thermal interface material, the paste between the die and the heatsink, and the capacitors on the power delivery section of the board. So step 2 in our process is GPU teardown and reball thermal interface. We're replacing the factory paste with a high-conductivity compound. We use thermal grizzly cryonaut on this build. After repasting, Our RTX 2060 dropped from a peak of 87 degrees Celsius under load to 71 degrees. 16 degrees. That's not just a temperature number. That's the difference between the GPU boosting aggressively and the GPU throttling to protect itself. Thermal throttling is the silent killer of used GPU performance, and almost nobody addresses it before benchmarking. For RAM, random access memory, we're running 16 gigabytes of DDR4 at 2400 MHz. Now I can already hear some of you saying, but shouldn't you run faster RAM? Here's the nuanced answer. Yes, faster RAM helps, particularly on AMD Ryzen platforms, where the memory controller is tightly coupled to the Infinity Fabric interconnect. On our Intel platform, the performance delta between 2400 and 3200 MHz RAM in gaming is typically 2 to 4 frames per second. Is it worth paying $30 extra for? Probably not, when our total budget is $300. The RAM we used cost $18 for the kit, sourced from a corporate laptop refresh batch. Step 3, RAM validation. Download and run memtest86. It's free, it boots from a USB drive, and you let it run for at least 2 full passes. This step alone will save you hours of mysterious system crashes down the road. If it passes 2 passes clean, you're good. If it throws errors, return the kit. It's that simple. For the motherboard, we used an Intel Z370 chipset board. The chipset name is Z370, which supports our CPU and gives us overclocking headroom if we want it later. Picked it up for $35. The thing about motherboards is they either work or they don't. There's very little middle ground. Step 4. Flash the BIOS, Basic Input-Output System, to the latest version before doing anything else. Manufacturers release BIOS updates that improve memory compatibility, fix power delivery bugs, and sometimes unlock performance features. On our board, a BIOS update from 2022 added support for an additional memory profile that gave us a free 3% CPU performance bump. Free performance. Just from updating firmware that was already available. For storage, we went with a SATA solid-state drive. That's a serial ATA solid-state drive. At 512 gigabytes. Cost, $22. Now here's where I want to push back on a common misconception. NVMe, non-volatile memory express, drives are faster in sequential read and write benchmarks. But in gaming, where the bottleneck is GPU rendering and asset streaming, the real-world difference between a SATA solid-state drive and a mid-range NVMe in actual game load times is often under 2 seconds. 2 seconds. The SATA drive is fine for this build. Spend the savings elsewhere. The case and power supply came as a bundle from a local recycler, a mid-tower ATX case, and a 550-watt 80-plus bronze certified power supply for $40 total. Always check power supply certification when buying used. 80-plus bronze means the unit is at least 82% efficient at 50% load. Below that certification, you risk unstable power delivery to your components, and with used hardware, you want every variable controlled. Step 5. Power supply capacitor check. Plug the power supply into the wall with nothing connected, and measure the 12-volt rail with a multimeter. You want to see between 11.8 and 12.2 volts. Outside that range, the capacitors are degrading, and the unit needs to be replaced. Ours read 12.04 volts, solid. Now let's talk about the single biggest performance multiplier in this entire build that costs you absolutely nothing extra. Deep Learning Super Sampling, or DLSS. Our RTX 2060 supports DLSS version 2. What this does is use the tensor cores on the GPU to render the game at a lower internal resolution, and then use a trained neural network to upscale it to your display resolution. In practical terms, at 1080p with DLSS set to quality mode, our GPU is actually rendering at roughly 720p internally and upscaling. The visual difference in motion is nearly imperceptible to most people. The performance gain is 40 to 60% more frames per second. So instead of 60 frames per second in Cyberpunk 2077 at medium settings, we're hitting 90 plus with DLSS quality enabled on an $85 GPU. Step 6. For every DLSS compatible title in your library, and there are currently over 300 of them, enable DLSS at quality mode as your default. This is not a compromise. This is an optimization. Here's our complete step-by-step build and optimization checklist. Step 1. Source and validate the CPU using CPU-Z verification before purchase. Step 2. Tear down and replace the GPU with high-conductivity thermal interface material. Step 3. Run memtest86 for 2 full passes on your RAM kit. Step 4. Flash your motherboard BIOS to the latest available version immediately after first boot. Step 5. Verify the power supply 12-volt rail with a multimeter. Step 6. Enable DLSS or FSR, AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution, in every compatible game. Step 7. In Windows, set your power plan to high performance, and in your NVIDIA control panel, set Power Management Mode to Prefer Maximum Performance. Step 8. Disable Xbox Game Bar and any background recording software. These consume between 3 and 8% of CPU resources constantly. Step 9. Update your GPU driver to the latest game-ready release, but note that for competitive gaming, driver versions from the previous 2 cycles are often more stable than day 1 releases. Step 10. Run a 30-minute stress test using Firmark for GPU and Prime 95 for CPU simultaneously before you consider the build complete. This catches thermal issues, power delivery instability, and memory problems in one session. Our final benchmark results on this $300 build. Valorant at over 200 frames per second at 1080p. Cyberpunk 2077 at 93 frames per second with DLSS quality. Apex Legends at 140 plus frames per second consistently. Compare that to a budget new build at $800. You'd see maybe a 10 to 15% performance improvement on the new build. Is that worth $500 extra to you? That's not a rhetorical question. I'm genuinely asking you to do that math for your own situation. Drop your answer in the comments. What's the maximum you'd pay for a 15% performance improvement? I want to see what this community thinks, because that number tells you everything about where your upgrade threshold actually should be. Here's the thing, nobody in the mainstream tech press wants to say out loud. The planned obsolescence cycle is not driven by performance gaps. It's driven by marketing budgets and depreciation schedules. The hardware we use today didn't fail. It was replaced because a CFO somewhere decided it was time to refresh a corporate fleet, and those machines got bundled, sold to a recycler, and listed on eBay for the price of a fast food dinner. That is a resource allocation problem, and the right to repair movement exists precisely to push back on the culture that created it. If you believe that functional hardware deserves a second life, whether that's for environmental reasons, financial reasons, or just because you refuse to be manipulated into spending money you don't need to spend, then this channel is built for you. Subscribe to Tech Renew Deep Dive. Every week, we go deeper than the surface level. We'll cover laptop thermal optimization, RAM upgrade strategies for aging machines, enterprise hardware sourcing guides, and the technical arguments you need to win every conversation about why your old machine is not actually old. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next build. And if you found value in this one, share it with someone who's been told they need to upgrade. They probably don't, and now you know exactly why.